I'm Aaron Murray, and this is Israeli News Live. Let's take a look at some of the things going on around the world today, starting in Israel. Gaza ceasefire extended by 24 hours. The five-day ceasefire has officially been extended, and we're going to have to see what will happen here, but we're hoping that it will be extended again. Maybe some truce talks will actually succeed. Israeli and Palestinian Arab negotiators agreed to extend temporary ceasefire in Gaza by 24 hours. The current truce was to expire at midnight. Both sides have agreed to a 24-hour ceasefire, the official with the Palestinian delegation in Cairo said. Diplomatic sources in Jerusalem confirmed the extension, telling Kol Yisrael radio that at the request of Egypt, the ceasefire will be extended for another day so that the negotiations on a permanent truce can continue. The Jerusalem Post is reporting a dramatic surge in anti-Semitism, especially during the Operation Protective Edge. The Anti-Defamation League said in a report on Thursday that a dramatic upsurge in violence and vitriol against Jews had occurred around the world against the background of Israel's military operation in Gaza during July and August. The organization's report said that violence against Jews and Jewish institutions metastasized during Operation Protective Edge. Numerous serious incidents directly linked to anti-Israel protests were reported, including attacks against Jews and Jewish communal buildings in Western Europe, South America, Canada, Australia, and North and South Africa. We have a Christian radio concert, a Christian concert here, and an Israeli charity was banned from the Christian festival. The Christian Friends of Israel says it's shocked and saddened after an offer to exhibit at the festival. Momentum was withdrawn. The resource area that was due to include a stall by Christian Friends of Israel, but the charities told Premier it had been banned from exhibiting because of concerns it would stir up controversy over the conflict in Israel. Controversy. So that's the problem. I really don't think this is the reason why they were banned from this particular event. So, Russia Today is reporting that supermarket removes Jewish food amid anti-Israel protests. A central London branch of a major UK supermarket emptied its kosher food shelf after its manager feared anti-Israel protesters outside would attack the store, the grocery giant has confirmed. Meats, cheeses, and sauces were removed and placed in a cool storage at Sainsbury, I believe that's how you call it, local branch in Holborn, as it was picketed by demonstrators calling on the grocer to boycott Israeli goods. There followed uproar on social media as opponents of the move said many of the removed items were not actually from Israel. And apparently it doesn't matter if something is from Israel or not. As long as it's something connected to Israel, then it will be protested and we will see stuff like this. This is just a crying shame. It's a crying shame. Let's move on. End Time Headlines reports that a U.S. homeowner was to remove U.S. and Israeli flags or be fined. We were told by the Homeowners Association. Let's watch this report.
A North Georgia woman says it is her right to fly an American flag in her yard, and she says she's prepared to fight for it. But her Homeowners Association says the patriotic display has got to go. Now, Fox 5's Corey McGinnis is in Gainesville tonight. And Corey, to be clear, this is not an issue where she's just in trouble over the flag, right?
You're absolutely right, Tanae. And she was actually told that she has 72 hours to remove the flags. Now she says the Homeowners Association is trying to control her.
It is a free country and a free world.
Delita Smith comes from a patriotic family. She was stunned when she was told to take her American and Israeli flags down.
I have a right to fly my flags the way I want to in my own home that I own myself.
Smith says she received this courtesy notice Thursday from her homeowners association. It states that she has unapproved flags in her yard, and if they're not removed in 72 hours, she can be fined.
It's really tearing me up because I have a right.
She says the flags have been up for about 2 years and believes a neighbor has now complained.
It's stressful is what it is. I'm trying to live out on my own, and my HOAs is trying to control on what I can do and what I can't do.
But what she will do is keep the flags up and plans to take further action if HOA finds her.
What would you do? I have a right to fly my American flag. I am a citizen of the United States.
Now, Ms. Smith said that she would hire a lawyer if that's what it takes to keep the flags up. I actually called the homeowner's office, and I'm still waiting for a return call. Reporting live in Gainesville, Corey McGinnis, Fox 5 News.
All right, Corey, we'll see what happens. Thanks.
One thing I want you to notice about this report is that it focused on the American flag. Now we can all clearly see that the reason why the complaint was made is indeed the Israeli flag. You can see this because she said that her flags had been displayed for 2 years. So what has changed? What has changed? I'll let you decide that one. Let's move on. The Jerusalem Post is reporting activists protest to stop Israeli ship from docking in the United States and Canada. The American and Canadian activists are working to prevent an Israeli cargo ship from docking the west coast of the United States or Canada, according to a report by Al Jazeera. The protest action, called Block the Boat, wishes to block a cargo ship of Israel's largest shipping company, Zim Integrated Shipping Services Limited. According to the Al Jazeera report, the action is part of the BDS movement and plans to protest at ports in Oakland, California, Seattle, and Vancouver. The protests will try to close the ports in the aforementioned cities to the Israeli cargo ship and prevent Israeli goods from being unloaded in the west coast of North America. Al Jazeera is also reporting on this event. The protesters are blocking an Israeli ship from docking in a California port. Thousands of protesters successfully blocked a commercial Israeli cargo vessel from docking and unloading goods in Oakland, California late Saturday. The protest was started in response to a call from Palestinian and South African unions to hold Israeli accountable for what they call are violations of Palestinian human rights, and particularly during Israel's latest offensive in the Gaza Strip, an operation that killed more than 1,900 Palestinians. Saturday's event, which drew between 3,000 to 5,000 protesters, was part of a series of actions planned by the United States and Canadian activists across North America's west coast. And if it wasn't enough to block Israeli shipment to America, the White House is blocking a missile shipment to Israel. Well, the Pentagon has approved a shipment of Hellfire missiles used by helicopter gunships for Israel. It appears the Pentagon's approval was made without consulting the White House and Department of State. If you remember, Obama signed an executive order. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but in essence, it required all shipments of arms and such to be approved by the White House itself. So keep that in mind. According to a Wall Street Journal report, the White House and Department of State learned of the military order and are preventing the shipment to Israel, with the report explaining they are concerned over Israel's use of the missiles in civilian population areas, as was seen in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge weeks ago. The newspaper continues, quoting a senior Israeli official who states the rift between Israel and the U.S. had deepened, and while there have been tensions in the past, now it is becoming personal and reflects a level of distrust between the sides. Now let's move on to something else, to the African continent and to the Liberia Ebola crisis, which is going on around the area. I wanted to address this today because it's an issue that affects nations and countries worldwide. And this is something that could possibly lead to some problems down the road for America and Israel alike. So I would like to examine this for a few moments and get all of you up to speed so that we understand what this is and perhaps what it isn't. But let's take a quick look here and we'll figure that out together. A Liberia clinic attack overwhelms overworked Ebola aid workers. The battle against the West African Ebola outbreak suffered a huge setback this weekend at clinic and quarantine center for suspected patients in the Liberian capital of Monrovia was attacked late Saturday, resulting in dozens of infected patients walking back into the community and contaminated items being removed. Widespread fear of the deadly virus turned ugly as an angry mob raided the treatment center in the largest slum of Monrovia. The mob, many of them armed with clubs, forced open the Ebola isolation ward, chanting, "No Ebola in West Point," the name of the slum. There were also heard shouting that Ebola didn't really exist, claiming it was a hoax by the Liberian president to get money. They looted the clinic, removing contaminated medical items, instruments, and soiled bedding. It is believed as many as 29 patients fled the treatment center, and their whereabouts are unknown, leaving health workers fearing a possible dramatic spread of the virus in the sprawling capital. We really don't understand how big this problem is. And we're taking measures right now that are equivalent to the same thing that was taken, the same methods rather, that was taken during the Black Plague. Ebola outbreak. Plague villages set up to contain virus emulate methods of medieval Europe. The rapid spread of Ebola has led to affected countries creating quarantine villages, medical roadblocks to halt the spread of the infection to cities, and military operations forcing people ill with the disease to stay in their homes, creating a modern-day version of the plague villages created in medieval Europe and demonstrating the extent of West Africa's suffering under the outbreak. Liberia has quarantined remote villages at the epicenter of the virus in an effort to control the epidemic, shutting them off from outside world and invoking the medieval methods deployed to deal with the disease hundreds of years ago. I bring this up to you so that you can see the actual scope of the problem. And all of this information that we've been talking about, the Ebola crisis in West Africa, is leading up to this next article that I wanted to bring to your attention. This is something that's going around YouTube and being mentioned here and there, and a lot of people are really getting jumpy about this. And I want to bring it up. It may or may not be entirely accurate. I'm not sure. We can't verify any of this, but I want to bring it to your attention. Again, I say specifically because it is making waves across YouTube. So let's take a look. 3,000 Ebola martyrs warned ready to strike America. A new report released in the Kremlin today by the Foreign Intelligence Service is stating that the reasons for President Obama's mysterious and unscheduled return to the White House this weekend is due to the United States facing an apocalyptic attack from an estimated 3,000 Ebola martyrs who are already in America and warned are ready to strike. According to this report, SVR intelligence analysts became aware of the attack planned by these Ebola martyrs against the United States from their monitoring of an Islamic State terrorist cell operating out of the Embassy of Saudi Arabia, located in Washington, D.C. In the past few weeks, this report continues, this IS terrorist cell has had total freedom of movement around Washington, D.C., with no U.S. intelligence service monitoring of them, and have brazenly taken and posted photos of one, their flag pinned to the White House fence, and two, one of their operatives holding a letter against the backdrop of a U.S. government building that reads, "Soldiers of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria will pass from here soon," and followed by a Quran verse, and I don't want to read that particular verse. The underlying tweet posted with these photos further warned America, "We are in your state, we are in your cities, we are in your streets." Now I want to bring an opposing article that has a little bit of common sense. Crazy news headlines come and go every day with not an ounce of truth in them. Sometimes we can learn from them, though. And the following article from the European Union Times might help us understand the course of evildoers. It suggests 3,000 Ebola martyrs are already in the United States and ready to strike. And he goes on to say that the images could be manipulated and so. And he says, and yes, some bozo could have just as easily staged the torn paper shot to spread fear and panic, which is this one here. Basically, what I wanted to point out is this is going around YouTube, and this is something that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Oftentimes, stories like this come and go, and they can be like a test balloon that goes out to see how the public will react to any given thing. Watching the news over the years, I've seen this happen several times, and I wanted to bring this up to you. Even if this is a true attack that has been planned, that has been orchestrated over the country of America, these are things that a simple act of God's people getting on their knees and praying can literally prevent. I've seen things prevented by God's people humbling themselves and turning back to the Lord, seeking His face, and then things miraculously happen so that terror cells are exposed, so that these men's plans just crumble into pieces. So I wanted to bring this up to you in the close of this news broadcast to remind you all, pray for our country. This is a hard time. There are many threats around. There are always threats against our country, yes. Always threats against the United States, against Israel, and against anyone who tries to serve the Lord or any of God's people across the world. But indeed, the most important thing we have to realize is, if we turn to God, if we turn to Him, He will fight for us. Just as He fights for Israel, He will fight for America if we, as the Bible says, humble ourselves and pray, turn from our wicked ways, turn back to God. Let's take a look at one more thing here I have for you. John chapter 10, verse 10 in the Christian Bible, as it is said, "The thief cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly." And that is our hope in the face of all these things, in the face of all the terror across the world, in the rise of anti-Semitism, in anyone who stands with Israel being faced with the same thing. In this terrible time, when all of these things are being stirred, the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and destroy. but Yeshua comes that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for America's protection, and pray for Israel.